What if Leatherface was like the mother from Barbarian and wanted to raise a child of his own? I guess you would have Dolly. How's it going, everybody? Thank you for joining me for my review of this new horror film, which is about a couple who go hiking in the woods and they stumble across this large person dressed up like a doll wearing a porcelain mask, and this person ends up kidnapping the female main character and trying to raise her as its own child, treat her like a baby doll. I was curious to see what they would do with this kind of grimy backwoods slasher, so to start off with the positives for Dolly, I really do like the aesthetic for the most part of this movie. It's on the lower budget side of things. It's clearly going for a Texas Chainsaw Massacre type of vibe. You can tell that from the very beginning. There's one point where there's a sign in the woods directed towards a place called Hooper Mine, and we never go there. We never see a mine, so there's no reason for that sign to be there. So the only reason it's there is for it to be a reference, so the Texas Chainsaw influence is made quite clear. The grainy, gritty look of the film felt like a nice throwback. It was appropriate for the tone of what was going on, even though things got a little ridiculous because, of course, this person is trying to turn a grown woman into a baby doll. It's trying to feed her milk, and we get pretty crazy with the things that are happening, but the overall fucked up tone of the whole thing matches the aesthetic very well. And the Leatherface comparison also comes in because this person is very clearly mentally challenged, and I like the look. The entire doll getup, the porcelain mask was very effective, and the performance of this person who doesn't say anything, doesn't really make very many sounds at all, and just has to act and tell us what their mental state is like and be kind of unique in their physical performance just with their body language, because you can't even see their face at all, and I think the actor behind the mask does a pretty good job with that. The setting in general looks nice. These woods where, as far as we know, there's no help anywhere nearby whatsoever. Like, it's just large, open trees, more trees. It doesn't seem like there's much hope. Our villainous character is so freakishly strong, and there are so few characters in the movie that it really feels like help is impossible in this isolated setting, and that upped the tension. Ethan Suplee shows up at one point, good old Frankie from Boy Meets World. Always like seeing him in things, and he's really good here when he gets involved in this whole mess. I wish he had been in it more, but what we do get of him, I thought his performance was very good. He was sufficiently creepy, and he added an extra little layer to the story that I appreciated, and there is some storytelling, some backstory done here. Overall, it's very simple, but what little bit you do get that you could describe as lore behind our main villain is mostly communicated through visuals and just some simple lines of dialogue that let you know what their upbringing was probably like. And there are a few lines in particular that are very haunting, where you realize, this person's probably a victim in many ways themselves. And some of that dialogue just mixed in with all the visuals of the dolls. There are so many dolls. That's very clearly their thing. And that all came together to make a fairly compelling little slasher story, even though there isn't really much actually going on. They did a solid amount with what little they were really working with. There are some good practical effects. You get some good moments of blood and gore. There's one injury in this that is particularly brutal and sustained for a long time. It's an injury somebody gets very early on, and then they just kind of have to deal with it for the whole rest of the movie. They just have to go around having this absurd thing affecting their body in a way that, like, I can't even imagine the pain. It's very brutal to look at. That also raises the tension because you know our main villain doesn't want to kill our final girl, at least not yet, but if she acts out too much, it might injure the fuck out of her. It's also a very short runtime, which I think is appropriate. Without credits, it's like not even 80 minutes, I don't think. And with a story this simple, you don't want to spend too much time on it. Now on to the things that I was mixed to negative on with Dolly. It is very familiar. We have seen this kind of thing before. I think it has personality of its own. I think they do what they can, but overall, we've seen this in something like Barbarian from a couple years ago with the mother character. There was a segment in VHS Halloween last year where there was this entity that was kidnapping people and like treating them like babies and trying to be a mother to them. It's really nothing new. And outside of Ethan Suplee, I didn't really buy into a lot of the other performances. Seann William Scott is in here. Not much, though. He's not the focus. His girlfriend is the lead. And what little we do get of his character, he's kind of just like a really normal, straightforward dude. He doesn't have a lot of personality, not the type of character you would expect Seann William Scott to play, not a Stifler type character by any means. So it felt kind of weird having him in here. He didn't really get a chance to shine, to really portray much of this character. There wasn't much for him to do. And I just didn't really buy the chemistry between him and his girlfriend at the beginning of the movie. Her performance, I think as the movie goes on, she has to get more intense, more scared and desperate. I think she was doing a solid job there, but at the beginning, I just really didn't buy them as a couple, and I don't know if that was down to the performances or the writing. I think the short runtime was a good idea, but at the beginning, it feels maybe like they're trying to fast track it. We want to get to the horror as fast as possible, which I understand, but that comes at the expense of some really stilted, unnatural sounding dialogue that felt like it was supposed to be really cute to just try to establish their relationship as fast as possible. And I just didn't buy it. I didn't buy the chemistry between them because of the dialogue and a little bit of the performances as well. I do think the script has quite a few issues. This villain is freakishly strong, and it gets to the point of absurdity. I can buy it for a while, but we get to one segment in particular where it just completely loses me, especially because of the grounded, gritty tone and style that it's trying to replicate. When you all of a sudden elevate it and you go more over the top, it doesn't fit at all. Something happens that's just utter nonsense, and it's accompanied by a terrible CGI effect, which also doesn't fit at all. When you've got the practical stuff, even some of the stuff where you can tell, okay, that's on the lower budget side of things, I can tell that's like a prosthetic, but I appreciate the grounded nature of the whole thing. I can see what you're going for, and overall you're doing a good job with what you have. When you get this over the top, goofy cartoon moment, it just doesn't fit at all with what you're trying to do. And you did not have to do it that way. You did not have to execute that kill in that way. You could have had it happen 100 different ways, and you chose that, and I don't know why. And this main character, good lord. I already wasn't really buying her performance that much. I think she did okay in some of the scenes where she has to be scared, but the actions that are written for her on the page, holy shit. Every character in this movie is slow as fuck. Nobody reacts to anything at the speed that they should. Something that is obviously horrifying and dangerous and coming your way, everybody reacts to it slowly. Everybody's got to wander around like it's not an urgent situation. Everybody's got to have a little bit of a conversation. We don't have time to do that. Let's move. This character trips over herself, knocks herself out even, just passes the fuck out of her own accord, constantly puts herself in unnecessary danger. And if you have the villain face down, lying on the ground, and you are standing over them, holding a weapon, and you elect to throw that weapon on the ground, not only do I no longer care whether you die, I am now actively rooting for you to die. You are too stupid to survive in this world. I don't know how you write that. I don't know how, as an actor, you don't object. Like, why would I throw this on the ground? Why would I be that stupid? I do not want to play a character like that. Can we rewrite this real quick? Even though there is a good intimidation factor from our slasher, there are so many times where it feels like, no, this woman actually could have gotten away if she wasn't just a fucking idiot and didn't not get away for no real reason and put herself in danger. There are some stylistic choices that kind of set this movie apart from others like it, which I respect the ambition of. I would like to see more of what this writer and director would do in the future, but I don't really think they worked that well here. There are like chapter cards. If you want to do that, fine, I guess. There's no reason, though. There's no reason whatsoever to divide the movie into chapters. It doesn't change anything. There are some kind of like reality-breaking, trippy visuals at one point, which again, just didn't really feel like it meshed with the tone they were going for. I respect the idea, I just don't think it came together all that well. And the ending was not as satisfying as I wanted it to be after the hell that the main character has to endure, and you really want to have a big, explosive, satisfying climax. And right up until the end, the main character was being stupid. Like, I wouldn't have been surprised if the very last thing she did resulted in her getting entirely screwed over. And I'm just sitting there watching her do these dumb things, waiting for something really satisfying to happen. And it felt like they intentionally held back. Maybe because they want to make sequels, I don't know, but it felt like they very easily could have gone farther, giving us a really solid payoff to cap off this entire experience. And it feels like it was restrained. And the only reason I can think why they would do that is if they want to make more. So we can't push it too far. We can't have too crazy of things happen, because then what do we do next time? Well, okay, you should give the first movie a really good ending. That's what you should do. Prioritize this one, making this one as good as possible before you worry about anything else. So there are a lot of problems with the script, namely a lot of stupid character decisions, which I can be quite forgiving of in a lot of horror movies. If there's like a little bit here and there, I can forgive. But when there's so many, and they're so huge, as in like literally I could kill the killer and I just don't because reasons, when that's happening over and over again, it wears me down. Luckily, you have the short runtime, a pretty solid aesthetic, and some good practical effects, but it's really held back by a lot of that script, our lead character not being very compelling because of that, some iffy performances, and what could have been a really exciting, memorable ending, but felt like the movie just kind of petered out at that point. And so, if you want that gritty Texas Chainsaw 70s kind of style backwoods slasher, there are things here of value for sure. There's ambition, but it is quite familiar and it does stumble a lot along the way. And so it's not a movie I would recommend to most people, only really if you're in search of that kind of tone specifically. Other than that, I don't think this is particularly good. It's far from the worst I've seen this year. I had an okay time overall, but I think it stumbles a little more than it succeeds. I was looking forward to it, but I didn't go in with crazy high expectations. I knew that it was going to be low budget and simplistic, but even then, it kind of let me down, didn't live up to what it could have been just because of that script mostly, and maybe next time you'd have more opportunity to polish that up. I'd be curious to see what they can do with more, maybe next time, either a sequel to this or just doing something else. But if you've seen Dolly, leave your thoughts down in the comments. This was all just my opinion. I don't want to just throw it out there. I want to have a back and forth and hear what you thought as well. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you want to see more from me. I appreciate it, and I hope to see you for the next one.